Hey everybody, it's Wednesday night, and I know a lot of you are excited because you are finished with school either yesterday or today. I think almost all of you, with a couple of exceptions, are finished by now, Wednesday evening. So congratulations. I know it was a odd semester here to finish up, but we will meet on Zoom at 7:15. We'll talk a lot about last week's school and check in with you guys to see how you're doing. And then we will briefly talk about the book of Jude from the Bible Project. That is our book for this week. So if you have time, go watch the Bible Project video. Just go to thebibleproject.com and go to the New Testament, second to last book in the Bible, the letter from Jude, whose name is, as we start, Judah. His friends called him Jude. So one of four Jesus's brothers. We've talked about this before. Half brothers. How is he a half brother? We talked about this, right? Um, they were four other sons of Mary and Joseph, so they are Jesus' half brothers, right? We already talked about James a while back. So this is Jude, one of Jesus' brothers. None of his four brothers really followed him before his death, but after his death, they all saw him after his death, and then from that point on, all became disciples and all became leaders in the early church. Jude specifically was kind of a traveling teacher, missionary kind of guy. So this letter was written to a Jewish community, and he makes interesting. We know it's specific Jewish community and very knowledgeable group of people because he makes many different literature references. They kind of touch on the video. It's pretty interesting stuff that's not in the Bible, but Jewish were traditional Jewish writings of that time. So the people that he was writing to, he knew were aware of this. So that's how we know that it was a Jewish community and one that was very familiar with these writings. So it's written around 65 AD. So we're getting toward the end of the New Testament here, and a lot of these writings from Paul and other disciples and brothers of Jesus were very strongly and committed to Jesus, but also to his teachings, and we see that in his writings. So again, this is all we start to see a lot of similarities, particularly in this letter, which is only 24 verses, I believe, just one chapter, 24 verses. Probably on, if you don't have any notes or it's not a reference Bible, one page. Even with the reference Bible, I think mine was 2 pages. So very short letter, and there's a reason for that. We'll get that here in a second as well. The basic theme is, the opposition will come, and godless teachers will arise, and we need to reject these falsehoods and the immorality that they preach. So this again will sound very similar to other New Testament letters and a couple that we've talked about recently, more specifically. But he becomes aware of this crisis facing this church. So he writes this short letter. And he talks, right at the beginning, he talks about contend for the faith. And he talks about how he's going to write a longer letter, but heard of this crisis and kind of urgently wrote this. So again, maybe part of the reason why it was so short, he wanted to get this out, and it's got a lot of stuff packed into. It's just 24 verses, but we got, if you look at the Bible Project video, it's still 7 minutes, so it's got a lot of stuff packed into this very short letter. He doesn't waste any time. He says his greetings, and then boom, he goes. Not a lot of wasted stuff in there. So he's worried about their way of life, and they think they have a license to sin. Well, we're following God, we're following Jesus. Now we can do whatever we want. He saved us from sin, so we're good to go, right? This is very similar to what Paul wrote in Romans and also Second Peter. If you've been watching these here, and since we've been doing this quarantine time on Wednesday nights, a lot of these just in the whatever we're on 6 or 8 weeks, if that. A lot of these things very, very similar. Second Peter referenced Paul, and now this one sounds very similar to those references as well. So then he goes into the accusations of these corrupt leaders, and again, very interesting. Like something that jumped out to me. There's 3 Old Testament examples of rebels who then people who rebel and then receive divine justice. He talks the divine justice. Then he talks about those three. They are the Israelites who in the wilderness they rebel, and then their justice is that they die in the middle because they've rebelled. They die in the middle of nowhere. Uh, the angels who rebelled, they were judged, and then the people of Sodom and their immorality led to judgment. Those last two, out of those three, two of the three were the exact same ones Peter used. If you remember that, that kind of rings a bell when you watch the video. The exact same thing, Second Peter. Two of those three were the same examples, and then he goes into three examples of people who rebelled and also affected others, kind of to show, hey, it doesn't just affect you; it affects other people. He mentions Cain, Balaam, and Korah, and how these three examples they create chaos wherever they go. Cain kills his brother, but then also affected an entire another city of people. So they just had this chaos wherever they went. They affected other people with with their corruption, with their rebellion, with their um, just sin, right? So it finishes up, and again, it's very short, so it doesn't take long to finish up. He mentions an ancient warning, and he refers to Enoch, which again is one of those old Jewish texts. And then he goes to a recent warning from the apostles, and again we see these same things: Second Peter, First John, Paul in Second Timothy, all similar, and they are very closely following Jesus' teachings, and we see a lot of these themes exactly the same, almost like, hey, they knew each other, right? Or they talked to each other. They followed the same teachings, right, of Jesus. We see the exact same examples, like as I just mentioned before, but these teachings very, very similar. And again, kind of like we mentioned with Paul, anytime many times he wrote those letters, those to a group of people because he saw something wrong. And again, we saw at the beginning here, Jude heard of an issue going on in this church. So he closes off with comparing the community of Jesus to God's new temple, and you see some references to that. And then within that draws kind of like the pillar, the drawings that always go along with the Bible Project videos. These pillars will be based on prayer and obedience and staying alert and staying faithful to Jesus, which again we just heard in some of these other recent Bible Project videos. And again, they wrap it up with again kind of the unique kind of cool thing of the Bible Project videos, on how he quotes from other Jewish texts, the first book of Enoch, the Testament of Moses, which some of you are like, what's that? These were religious texts at that time that did not become part of the Bible, but the people back then were very familiar with these, and they would have known these. So again, we talked about at the beginning, he wrote to a Jewish community that was very familiar with Jewish teachings, Jewish literature. They would have known exactly what he was talking about, even though we know these things, but they're not in our current Bible. They were very familiar with these Jewish teachings at that time, again, why he referenced them. So kind of a unique little touch that he has there. Again, a very short book, very short letter that Jude wrote, but a lot of stuff crammed in there. And again, if you got time, go to thebibleproject.com, and in the New Testament, go search for videos, then go to the New Testament. Jude, of course, is toward the end there. And then we'll be on Zoom at 7:15. Everybody will be meeting and talking about the last week of school. And we'll briefly touch on the book of Jude as well. We'll see you later on. If you missed our meeting, you're watching this later. Hopefully we'll see you on Sunday. I hope you all have a good week. Sure, like I said, most of you are, because this is the last week of school. So congratulations. We'll see y'all later.